Mike Bohn here in Saudi Arabia with Coach Eric Nicksick, who is getting ready to be in Francis Ngannou's corner on Saturday against Tyson Fury. Eric, you've been here for a little bit. How's it been so far? How are you feeling kind of the final days leading up to Saturday?
It's good. It's like Groundhog's Day, but you're in a luxurious apartment and hanging out with your friends. But it's been good. I'm excited for him. It's crazy to think 4 or 5 years ago, Francis talking about this dream and this aspiration, and we're a couple days away from him, this becoming true for him.
Yeah, you've done too many fight weeks to count at this point. How does this feel different, especially in the world of boxing, right? It's such a bigger kind of spectacle as opposed to the UFC machine, which is just very rinse and repeat, maybe for better or worse sometimes. But this is obviously much more grandiose.
Yeah, no, that is exactly that. It's just cool to see your boy on the spotlight and just being put out there, and the promotions and everything else around it. It's been really cool. They've done a great job, and I couldn't be more proud of them.
And maybe the naysayer will look at him this week and be like, Francis is just happy to be here type of thing. You're obviously close to him. You're seeing him all the time. Is that a fair analysis, or do you feel like there's, he's more than that? He's obviously here to win too.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he's taking this very seriously, and I think that you hear some of those things. We're not big on reading the comment section or anything like that, but we're obviously going to feel it. You're going to hear it. And I think that's motivated him extra to work hard, and being out all of his training sessions and watching him and putting all the work that he's been putting in. He's taking this very, very seriously. I think you have to, right? You don't want to show up with this opportunity and just think I'm just happy to be here to make some money. Other than that, I think this is something for him. I was telling the team, I'm looking forward to see all the improvements that he's had in the boxing game, how we can apply it later on in the future for what we do in MMA.
Have you seen, what would kind of be your summary of the training camp you've seen him go through? I know he's been working with some other people and stuff, but kind of the journey through a boxing camp compared to MMA, especially coming off the long layoff and the injury.
Yeah, I think for me, the injury was the biggest thing, that he's able to get into somewhat of a training camp, but not having the wear and tear that we would with the wrestling, the grappling, the kicking, and everything else. So this has actually been, in a lot of ways, a blessing in disguise. And, I think it's helped with the wear and tear on his body as a whole. And then, the improvements, not only just, I think, for him in a boxing element, but his footwork and his defense, and, the way he counters now, and everything that John and Dewey have been working on with him. I'm super excited for him, and be able to see what we can apply later on in the future for what we do in MMA.
Yeah, and having just the freedom to go into a boxing fight and not have to worry about being taken down, and just have that in the little back of your mind at least. How much does that just open up the mental side of it in terms of just your ability to strike in a boxing fight compared to MMA?
Yeah, I'm sure it helps him a ton. And with those things, I think you also see just the intricacies of how important the striking becomes, and the angles and the rhythms and the feints and all those other things. Because in MMA, I think you work on those things, but it's more with a broad scope. And then now you really are just fine-tuning the essence of what actual boxing looks like, and what it is for the guys at the highest level that have been doing their entire lives. So he's barely scratched the surface in what he's capable of doing when it comes to the boxing side of things. So I think it's very interesting to think about and see that just his development, his improvement as just a kind of a one-sided athlete when it comes to just boxing.
Yeah, and what do you made of kind of Tyson Fury in the lead up to this? I think a lot of people thought he was disrespecting Francis by booking the Usyk fight, but you saw him yesterday at the Grand Arrivals. He definitely looks in better shape than we saw him at the first press conference. He told me he thinks it's a 50-50 fight. He's very aware that if he gets hit, it could be game over for him. So where do you just feel his mentality is at going into this?
Oh, I think he's a pro's pro. I don't think he's gonna take anybody lightly. And to be honest with you, we've seen that in sports where somebody takes somebody lightly and it bites him in the ass later on. So and I don't think that's the type of athlete that Tyson Fury is. I think he doesn't want to be that guy that takes somebody lightly and all of a sudden you lose that crown. He's a pro, and he's done things the way he's done them for so long. He's just so damn good with his movement and everything else, But at the end of the day, I don't think he's just going to rely on just showing up off the couch and just relying on what he's already done great at. I think he wants to go out and prove a point.
Yeah. What do you make of that? Because in MMA, it's not really a thing where you book 2 fights ahead, right? It happens in boxing sometimes, but did you Do you feel that's a bit of a slight, or is this just the nature of the business that's different from MMA?
Honestly, it's new to me too. Like I in a way, like you feel like, oh, well, that's kind of shitty that they're booking a fight ahead of, while this guy still has something already booked. But again, like I'm new to boxing. This is something that I'm not accustomed to. I'm sure that they move fast in a lot of those things that they do, and it's their business, it's their line of work. And as one of Francis's coaches, you can make that a little bit of bulletin board material. They're disrespecting you in those regards, but at the end of the day, he's got to face Francis first, and we'll see what happens after that.
Yeah, obviously getting to this point was such a big story for Francis over the past couple of years. Kind of crazy turn of events, right? Like if he was going to stay in the UFC, it was going to be for the John Jones fight. And we learned today that John Jones is injured and out of the fight with Steve. Obviously, we don't know if he was scheduled to fight Francis, if that exact same thing would have happened and stuff. But it's hard not to think about if he had stuck around there for that fight and then it could have gone away. It seems like his decision has only further reinforced that he did the right thing.
Yeah, I think you got that hindsight thing, and at the end of the day, he did what was right for him in that moment, and I couldn't be happier for the guy. He believed in himself. He went out and did what he felt was right for him in his career, and all those things that he wanted, his dreams and his aspirations to get to this point, they're all coming to fruition. So, I don't know how somebody couldn't be happy for the guy, right? Like, it's crazy to me that you'll see the people kind of hate on him, or even talking before, like he fumbled the bag. It's like, what does it matter to you guys? This dude's happy with his decisions and he's content on what he wants to do in his career, and I couldn't be happier for the man.
Yeah, I'd like to think those people just wanted to see that fight between him and John as opposed to like things, which is fair as an MMA fan. But yeah, like as far as the best interest, everyone talks about fighter pay and all these things. Like, how can you not look at him as an example of what's possible?
100%. I mean, if there's anybody that was upset about him not fighting John, it was me. Yeah. Like I was upset because like that was the fight we all wanted, and Francis wanted it too. Let's not get it twisted. It didn't happen in the timeline that we expected it to happen. I think people fail to remember that John Jones moved up to heavyweight after he beat Dominic Reyes. And it took him all this time to finally be ready to fight at heavyweight. We were there the entire time waiting, So for people to be critical on Francis's end, it just unfortunately it just didn't work out in that regard. But that fight will always be there, in my opinion. I think that it can always be revisited. We can always find a way to make that happen. So it is what it is. Yeah,
we'll see what happens. And of course, if he pulls this off, I don't know. Do you think that obviously pushes MMA further into the back burner, because he had said there's a rematch clause here, right?
I mean, it could, but from my understanding, after we fight Tyson Fury, we're going to fight in PFL no matter what. So I don't know what the timeline would look like, but from my understanding, that once boxing this one, then we're supposed to fight, early first quarter of 2024.
How do you shift his mindset back to MMA after something like this?
Yeah, he's going to hate getting back into the wrestling, man. But it's going to be good. Like, he's a guy that when you ask him to do things, or we lay out a game plan for a camp or a practice, he's never going to waver on it. Like, he doesn't question it. He goes in and does the work, and not only does he do the work, he does all the extra little things on the side. So, I'm excited for him to get through this and then take a month off and relax and go through the holidays, and then hopefully we have some opponent lined up or something within sight as far as a target date, and then we can kind of lay out when we want to start camp and then get back to work.
Sure. Well, that's going to be amazing. Other thing I wanted to ask you about, of course, Sean Strickland. We're still kind of reeling from his win. Obviously, congratulations on a tremendous achievement with that win. Amazing game plan by you guys. But it seems like we now look forward to what's next, and seems like it might be Khamzat Chimaev. And there's now all this talk about the training sessions they had. They've kind of both spoke about it. I guess just what are your kind of initial thoughts? Is this like a matchup that really excites you? Do you feel like there's a more deserving contender? Like, is this the right fight to make for Sean's first title defense in your opinion?
I don't really care. I mean, I love Khamzat, man. He was great. Like, he's a guy that, like, he was in the gym. He worked so hard. He was, I thought was a good teammate. He made the room better, and those guys had amazing rounds. Like, those two really pushed one another. Unfortunately, this is the business, right? Like, you might have to fight your friends down the line. And I hope that these guys, put on a good show. I hope they sell the fight well. But, at the end of the day, it's like, it's not my decision. It's the promotion's decision. I think you can make an argument for Dricus. Obviously Izzy's going to be taking some time off. You can make the argument that, Khamzat should probably fight Costa after that last performance. Or or, you throw him in there now while the, strike while the iron's hot. You might not want to lose that ability to fight Sean. So, but I'm excited for Khamzat. I really am. I think he's the guy that deserves that title fight. And I'm looking forward to that matchup.
Yeah, and I saw Sean, I think, did an interview with the Schmo like yesterday or the day before, and he was talking pretty openly about the training sessions. He was like, stand up, I love to do my thing, but on the ground, he submitted me a few times, essentially. Yeah. I don't know, you were there for those training sessions, I imagine. So, like, I don't know, how does that play into the game plan, preparing Sean mentally, just like having that kind of experience between the two?
It's what happens in the training room stays in the training room. I saw a lot of great things by both of them, but for me as a coach, I have to look at it like anecdotally and figure out the best path to victory for our guy. I have some ideas and thoughts on the way to approach the game plan. But with that being said, I was blown away at Khamzat's skill set. His ability to strike with level change, his ability to strike from both stances, his penetration step, a lot of things he does on the ground, things that I was able to kind of talk to him about and bring over to our style and what we like to do. So, this guy's unbelievable, and I can only imagine that since he's trained at Xtreme Couture, he only continued to evolve and add more tools. So, we got our work cut out for us, man. And that's the best part about being in the position that we are is you have to fight the next man up and the best available. And, it's a much different game plan than we're going to have when we have with Izzy. But that's the best part about the sport, man, is you get the best of the best at every time.
Yeah. How much did, I guess, in preparation for that, seeing that fight with Usman is going to help? Because not a ton of footage on Khamzat. Like going into that, you get another 15 minutes at middleweight. Of course, you saw some stuff in the gym too, but that was a ways back now. So like to have more footage where someone like Izzy, you have hours of tape to study over. There wasn't too much on him, and still maybe isn't too much.
Yeah, it does help. But when you really sit down and like you exhaust yourself in breaking so much film down and watching tape and everything else, and a lot of times, to be quite frank, like you might not even apply a lot of that into your game plan. The nice thing about the Sean and Izzy fight was like there was so much stuff that we accounted for and that we game planned for and that we had into our game plan that we didn't even have to show. There was parts where I was asking Sean to score a takedown to seal rounds and solidify some of the rounds, so we were making sure we were getting the edge on the scorecards. And Sean didn't even have to do that. So it was nice that we can always go back to the drawing board if we ever had a Izzy rematch with like 5 or 6 things we never even shown in the fight. So it's funny when you start breaking down the game plans and looking at all these things. Sometimes the simplest game plans are the ones that are most effective.
How surprised were you to hear like kind of what Izzy said about taking time off and everything after that fight? Because I know a lot of people felt that would be the next one, but it's definitely not going to be now from the looks of it.
Yeah, no, I'm actually happy for him, man. The guy's been working so hard. He's had so many title fights in the last year and a half, and he's answered the phone every time the UFC is called, and I'm sure he's made a ton of money by doing so. But I think over time you do start to get wore out, and it starts to wear you down, and you might want to spend time with family. And fortunately for him, I think he's in a good position to where no matter what he decides to do and how long he's out, he's going to come right back and be in that number 1, number 2 contender spot no matter what. So good on him, man. Take some time and relax and recoup, and then I'm actually looking forward to seeing him. He's going to be out here in a few days.
You mentioned that like you didn't show everything as part of the game plan in that first fight. One thing I was really impressed by watching that cage side was just like his ability to move the way of the kicks, the low kicks, and check the leg kicks. Like I don't know, I've never seen anyone execute that so perfectly against Israel. Like, was that something that even impressed you? How like locked in he seemed to be in that sense?
Yeah, it was, because that was a big part of our emphasis in our game plan, was actually reverse engineering what I thought Izzy's game plan was going to be. I thought they were going to exploit a lot of the low calf kicks, left head kicks, some of the teeps out of the southpaw stance. So it was imperative for us as coaches to game plan to have not only multiple ways to check the kicks, but also to counter them and or be out of the way. Because in a 5-round fight, 25 minutes in the cage with Izzy, if he cracks your calf 4 or 5 times, it can ultimately affect the whole entire outcome of the fight. So that was a lot of the emphasis with Danny and myself when we sat down and looked at the game plan. I asked Danny, hey, what is your thoughts on this? And he said, I think this. And I was like, I think this too, and let's get to work on figuring this out. So anytime we worked on the pads, we were either in our shin guards or we were throwing calf kicks at Sean and making him pay if he wasn't checking. So it worked out well, man, and I was very proud of him because, when you start thinking about the calf kick and you're breaking it down, like you're kicking a guy with your metatarsals in the small part of your ankle. So if you can get a check off and get your shin bone involved, a couple of those, and you might break a guy's foot, or it might be a deterrent for him not to kick your calf, So it was important for us to right away to check a couple of those kicks and maybe minimize the damage or the volume of the calf kicks by Izzy.
Yeah, and I wonder, with Sean winning the title, like, have you seen a fighter less changed by success than him, right? Like, he breaks the belt, he posts all that stuff. Like, have you seen any difference whatsoever in this guy since that night he captured that title?
Not really. I mean, honestly, I think he's always been a great teammate, but I think like this has like propelled him more into that like captain role. Like since I've been out here for 3 weeks, he's ran all my practices and he's been the one to volunteer. Like when I called him, I was like, "Hey man, would you be down?" He's like, "I'm in, dude. I'm there every day anyway. I'll run it just the way you run it." So I think he's embraced that role. He's not walking around the gym with the belt or anything like that. He's the same old dude that we all know and love. But I think he's really taken that leadership role a little bit more seriously, and it's nice because in the gym it doesn't have to be myself and Dennis and Nate and Eddie and all the guys like kind of riding the team and getting them to do the things that we ask. It's nice when you get like captains like Brad and Sean and Chris Curtis and guys step up and try to right the ship when you're not there, and because they care about the team, and that's been the thing I noticed most about Sean is just not only has he been a great teammate, I think he stepped that role up even bigger.
Perfect world, when do you think you'd like to see him fight again? Like first quarter next year, probably?
Yeah, I would think so, depending on if Khamzat's the opponent and if he has a broken hand or anything like that. So
we still don't know.
Yeah, which we still don't know. So, depending on their schedule, what it looks like travel-wise. But, I got a text from those guys from UFC, like right after the fight, and they just said, just let me know when you guys want it, and we'll be ready.
What else is exciting for you coming up in terms of stuff at the gym? Any particular fights?
I don't even know. I don't even know what's going on over there right now, to be honest. No, we got
so locked in over here.
Yeah, we've been so locked in. No, I'm really excited. I got Puna Soriano coming back when I get back home, and then Roman Dolidze was supposed to fight Jared Cannonier. We'll see if that gets booked, and then I get right back with Casey O'Neill and Cody Garbrandt. They're in December, so that'll wrap up the rest of my year essentially. And we got a big fight with Patchy. He's fighting out in Chicago. Nate will have him out there. So and then Sadabu defending his for the title out for PFL. So the team is doing such a great job, man. I'm really excited for what everybody's doing there, and it'd be nice to get home and see the kids and hang out for a few days. But obviously it's right back to work for me.
Sure, man. Well, one of the best coaches in the game, one of the best gyms in the game, man. You've been doing amazing. What a great year, and this would be an amazing capstone on this if Francis can pull this off on Saturday. So appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you, brother. Good to see you, man.